It was a hot afternoon. The bank was full of people. Some were angry, some were tired, and some were busy on their phones. Everyone was waiting for their turn. The air was cool inside, but the mood was not. Then the door opened slowly. A woman walked in. She looked different from others. She wore an old dress and cheap sandals. Her bag was small and looked worn out. Her hair was tied back simply. She didn't speak to anyone. She didn't smile. She just walked in and stood in the line like everyone else. Some people looked at her and whispered, "Who is she? Look at her clothes. She doesn't belong here." But the woman didn't say a word. She kept her eyes on the floor and waited patiently. Her hands held her bag tightly, as if it had something very important inside. At the counter, a man named Mr. Harris was working. He was neat, well-dressed, and proud of his job. He had worked in this bank for many years. He thought he was smart. He thought he could always tell who was rich and who was poor. When Mr. Harris saw the woman, he frowned. "What is she doing here?" He whispered to his coworker. "Maybe she's lost." The woman slowly moved forward as the line got shorter. People were still looking at her, some laughing quietly. She ignored all of them. Finally, it was her turn. She walked up to Mr. Harris's counter and gave him a soft smile. "Good afternoon," she said in a quiet voice. Mr. Harris didn't smile back. "Yes, what do you want?" he asked in a sharp tone. "I want to make a transaction," she said. "I want to take out some money from my account." Mr. Harris raised an eyebrow. "And how much do you want to take out?" The woman looked into her bag and took out some papers. $500,000, she said calmly. Mr. Harris almost laughed. "Excuse me?" "500,000, she repeated. Everyone nearby turned their heads. Mr. Harris stared at her. He thought it was a joke. "Do you even have an account here?" "Yes," she said. "This is my account number. Here is my ID." She placed the ID card and papers on the counter. Mr. Harris picked them up and looked at them. He still didn't believe her. He thought the ID was fake. He thought the account wasn't real. He leaned closer and said, "Ma'am, where did you get this ID?" "It's mine," she replied calmly. Mr. Harris stood up and walked over to the branch manager's office with the papers in his hand. He whispered something to the manager. The manager looked at the ID, then looked at the woman standing at the counter. "She doesn't look like someone with $500,000, Mr. Harris said. "Maybe she's trying to scam us." The manager nodded. "Call security. Let's check her out." Back at the counter, the woman was still standing quietly. She looked at the people staring at her, but she said nothing. Her face showed no fear, just sadness. Then, 2 security guards came. "Ma'am, please come with us," one of them said. "Why?" she asked, confused. "Just for a quick check. Don't worry," the guard replied. The woman nodded and picked up her bag. As she walked with the guards, people started talking louder. "See, I knew she was fake. She probably stole someone's ID. Why else would she ask for so much money?" Mr. Harris stood there with a smirk. He felt proud. He thought he saved the bank from a thief. The woman was taken to a side room. The guards checked her bag. It had nothing suspicious, just a bottle of water, a small notebook, and some medicine. Still, Mr. Harris called the police. "I want her arrested for fraud," he told them. Outside the room, the other customers were still watching. Some were recording videos with their phones. Some laughed. Some just shook their heads. Inside the room, the woman sat silently. She looked out the window. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just sat there, waiting. Mr. Harris opened the door and looked at her. "Do you have anything to say?" he asked. The woman looked at him with calm eyes. "Yes," she said. "What?" "You'll regret this," she said softly. Mr. Harris laughed. "We'll see." But something in her voice made him stop smiling. For just a second. The quiet woman sat in the small room inside the bank. 2 security guards stood near her, watching her like she was a criminal. Her hands were folded on her lap. She looked tired, but not afraid. She didn't speak. She didn't argue. She just waited. Outside, Mr. Harris was feeling proud of himself. He walked around the bank with confidence. "I saw it the moment she walked in," he told a coworker. "She didn't belong here. Something was off. She looked poor. Probably thought she could trick us." His coworker nodded but didn't say much. Not everyone was as sure as Mr. Harris. Some of the other staff looked a little uncomfortable. "She seemed polite," one of the female tellers whispered. "Maybe we should have asked more questions before calling the police." Mr. Harris overheard, but ignored it. "We saved the bank," he said. "She could have stolen $500,000. Soon, the police arrived. 2 officers, 1 male and 1 female. They entered the bank quickly and walked straight to the manager's office. Mr. Harris followed them and showed them the ID and account papers. "She came in and asked for $500,000, he explained. "But she doesn't look like someone who has that kind of money. Her ID seems fake, and she was acting strange." The manager added, "We thought it's best to call you before anything goes wrong." The police officers looked at the ID. They checked it. It didn't look fake. It looked real. The account number was also active. But something didn't feel right to them. "Where is the woman now?" the female officer asked. "She's in the side room," Mr. Harris said. "We kept her there so she wouldn't run." The police walked to the room. The woman looked up as they entered. She stayed calm. "Ma'am," the female officer said gently, "we need to ask you some questions. Is this your ID?" "Yes," the woman replied. "Is this your account?" "Yes." "Do you have anything to prove it belongs to you?" The woman reached into her bag and pulled out more papers. There were letters, some bank statements, and even old photographs of her inside the bank, smiling with an older man in a suit. The police looked at everything carefully. They stepped outside to talk privately. "She doesn't look dangerous," the male officer said, "and her documents look okay. But why would she take out so much money in person?" The female officer asked. "People like her usually don't walk into a bank and ask for $500,000 in cash. Still, no law says she can't." They returned to the room. "Ma'am," the officer said, "we need to take you with us for now. You are not under arrest, but we must investigate this further." The woman stood up slowly. "I understand." As they walked her out of the room, people inside the bank stared. Some pointed. Some laughed. One person whispered, "Thieves come in all shapes." Mr. Harris stood near the door. He crossed his arms and smiled proudly. "This is what happens when people try to cheat," he said loudly, so everyone could hear. The woman stopped and turned her head toward him. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply said, "You saw my clothes. You never saw my heart." Then she turned and walked with the police. Mr. Harris paused. Her words stayed in his mind for a moment, but then he shrugged. "She's just angry because she got caught," he said to himself. Outside, the police put her in the car. She sat quietly in the back seat, holding her small bag close to her. The female officer asked her gently, "Why did you come here today? Why didn't you use online banking or a lawyer?" The woman looked out the window and said, "Because I wanted to see if anyone would remember me." "Remember you?" the officer asked. The woman nodded, but didn't explain. As the car drove away, Mr. Harris stood at the bank entrance, feeling like a hero. Customers clapped for him. The manager patted his back. "Well done, Harris," he said. "You saved us from trouble." But not everyone was happy. The young female teller, who had watched everything quietly, looked at the door where the woman had just left. Something didn't feel right to her. She opened her computer and typed the woman's account number into the system again. What she saw made her eyes go wide. She quickly stood up and ran to the manager's office. "Sir," she said, "you need to see this." He looked at her screen. His face turned pale. "This account," he said slowly, It's real. And it has millions. The police car stopped outside the local station. The quiet woman stepped out slowly. She still held her small bag close, like it was the only thing she had in the world. Her eyes were calm, but inside, her heart was heavy. She had not done anything wrong. She only went to the bank to take out her own money. But now, she was being treated like a criminal. And the worst part, nobody believed her. They only saw her clothes, not her truth. Inside the bank, the young female teller stood frozen. She had just checked the woman's account. It was real. Not only real, it was full of money. Millions, more than anyone else in that branch had. She ran to the manager's office. "Sir, that woman's account is real," she said breathlessly. She wasn't lying. It's under her name. She has over $2 million. The manager stared at the computer screen. His hand started to shake. He looked at the name on the account. Then he looked again. Something about the name seemed familiar, very familiar. "Wait a minute," he whispered. "Isn't she?" Mr. Harris walked in, smiling. "So is it over? The thief is gone." The manager turned to him sharply. "She's not a thief, Harris. Her account is real." Mr. Harris blinked. "What? That's impossible." The manager ignored him and picked up the phone. He called the head office to confirm the account. "Yes, this is Branch Manager Walker," he said quickly. "I need urgent info on a client. Ms. Elisa Moore." "Yes, that's the name." There was silence on the other end. Then the voice spoke. "Sir, do you mean Elisa A. Moore?" "Yes." "You mean the same Elisa Moore who saved the bank from a massive fraud 10 years ago?" The manager's heart skipped a beat. Yes, that might be her." "She's a hero, sir," the voice said. "She worked with our top security team years ago. She exposed a fraud that could have destroyed us. She retired quietly after that. She's listed as a VIP. Her accounts are high security level. Is something wrong?" The manager couldn't breathe for a second. We just had her arrested." There was silence again. "You what?" "I'm so sorry. We didn't know it was her." "You better fix this immediately," the voice said coldly. "She's respected at the top levels. If word gets out, your whole branch will be in trouble." The manager dropped the phone. "Harris, what have we done?" Mr. Harris's face turned pale. I didn't know." "She's a VIP," the manager shouted. "A former employee. A respected figure. And we humiliated her in front of everyone." Meanwhile, at the police station, the woman sat in a small chair. She was still quiet. She looked around the room calmly. The female officer walked in and sat across from her. "Ma'am," she said, "we're going to need to check your story more deeply. I hope you understand. It's just part of the process." The woman nodded. "Do what you need to do." Suddenly, a phone rang. The male officer picked it up. He listened for a moment. His eyes widened. "Yes, sir. Yes, she's here. What?" He looked at the woman, then back at the phone. "I understand. We'll take care of it." He hung up and turned to his partner. "She's not a criminal. She's a respected client. A former employee. We made a mistake." They walked back into the room. "Ms. Moore," the officer said, now in a much softer voice, "we deeply apologize. There was a mistake at the bank. We just received confirmation from head office. You are free to go." The woman simply nodded. She stood up slowly, still holding her bag. Outside, news had already started spreading. Someone had posted the video online. The poor-looking woman being arrested for asking for money. The video was already getting comments. Why arrest someone just for asking for her money? She looked sad, not dangerous. This is how the world treats people who don't look rich. People were talking. At the bank, the manager ran outside to greet her car. He was sweating. Mr. Harris stood behind him, silent and nervous. The police car stopped. The woman stepped out, still calm. "Ms. Moore," the manager said quickly, "please, please forgive us. We didn't know who you were. It was a terrible mistake." Mr. Harris walked up slowly. He looked ashamed. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I judged you too fast. I thought." "You thought I looked poor," the woman finished his sentence. "So I must be lying." Mr. Harris didn't answer. "I gave everything to this bank years ago," she said. "I saved it from being destroyed. I didn't expect a red carpet, but I didn't expect handcuffs either." Her words were quiet, but sharp like a knife. No one dared to speak. The woman turned to leave. "You'll regret this," she had said before. Now they knew she meant every word. The next morning, the city was talking about just one thing: the woman at the bank. Videos from the bank had gone viral. People on social media were angry. They couldn't believe what had happened. A woman with millions was arrested, just because of her clothes. Shame on the bank. Why didn't they check the facts first? But the woman, Ms. Elisa Moore, was silent. She didn't post online. She didn't give interviews. She just stayed home. Her small apartment was clean and quiet. On her table were some old photos, pictures of her when she was young, standing in front of the same bank in a neat uniform, smiling proudly. Yes, she had once worked there. Years ago, Elisa was not poor. She was a respected worker at the bank. She was smart, kind, and always honest. One day, she found something strange in the system: fake accounts, missing money, and names that didn't make sense. She didn't stay quiet. She spoke up. She showed the truth. Her report saved the bank from a big scandal. But after that, she slowly disappeared from the public eye. She retired quietly. She didn't want fame. She just wanted peace. Now all those memories were coming back. Back at the bank, things were falling apart. The head office was not happy. The manager received a strong warning. "Fix this now," they said. "Make it right." Mr. Harris couldn't sleep the whole night. His name was all over the internet. People were angry. Customers were canceling accounts. He sat in his office the next morning with his head in his hands. "I destroyed everything with my pride," he whispered. The young female teller who had found the truth walked in. "Sir," she said softly, "we need to make this right. She gave years of her life to this bank, and we threw her out like she was nothing." The manager nodded. "We have to go to her. In person." Later that afternoon, 3 people stood in front of Ms. Moore's apartment: the bank manager, the young teller, and Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris looked nervous. He held a small bouquet of flowers. His hands were shaking. The door opened slowly. Elisa looked at them. She said nothing. "Ms. Moore," the manager said, "please allow us to come in. We are here to apologize. From our hearts." She stepped aside. They sat in her small living room. The manager looked around. The walls had no fancy decorations, just books, old photos, and quiet peace. "We didn't recognize you," he said slowly. "We failed you." Elisa looked at him. "You saw my face. You saw my clothes. That was enough for you to decide who I was." "We judged you," Mr. Harris said, barely able to look up. "And I'm the most guilty. I'm ashamed." He placed the flowers on the table. "I read your old reports," the teller said. "You saved this bank once. You should be honored, not hurt." There was a long silence. Elisa spoke softly. "Why do people only respect those who look rich? Why do we forget kindness, honesty, and service?" No one had an answer. "We can't change the past," the manager said, "but we want to make it right now. The bank wants to hold a public apology. We want to honor you, officially, for your years of service and for what happened yesterday." Elisa was quiet. She looked at them for a moment. "I don't want awards," she said. "I don't want a speech." "Then what do you want?" Mr. Harris asked. "I want change," she replied. Don't treat the next poor-looking woman the way you treated me." Everyone fell silent again. She stood up and walked to a small cupboard. She took out an old envelope and placed it on the table. "This," she said, "is a scholarship I created. It's for girls from poor families, to help them study banking and finance." They looked at the envelope with surprise. "You created this?" the teller asked. "Yes," Elisa replied. "I never wanted the spotlight. I just wanted to help others quietly." Mr. Harris felt tears in his eyes. He had never met someone like her before. "I'll help too," he said, "if you allow me. I want to change. I want to be better." Elisa looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Then start by listening," she said, "not judging." That evening, as the sun went down, the three of them left her apartment with heavy hearts and open minds. Elisa stood at the window, watching the sky. She wasn't angry anymore. The truth had come out. 2 days later, the bank made an announcement. They were holding a special press conference. It was not about money, not about business. It was about a woman, Ms. Elisa Moore. The news spread fast. People who had seen the video of her arrest were curious. Is the bank really going to apologize in public? Is that kind woman finally getting justice? The day of the event arrived. The large hall inside the bank was full. Reporters, news channels, customers, and staff, all were present. Mr. Harris stood near the stage, holding a paper in his hand. His heart was beating fast. He was going to speak, and he was nervous. Beside him stood the bank manager and the young female teller. All three of them had one thing on their minds. "We must make this right." Then the doors opened, and Elisa Moore walked in. She wore a simple white dress. Her hair was tied back. She walked slowly, quietly, but the whole room turned to look at her. No guards, no handcuffs. This time, people stood up and clapped. She nodded gently but didn't smile. She walked to her seat in the front row. Mr. Harris stepped onto the stage. He looked at the crowd, then at Elisa. His voice trembled. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "2 days ago, I made a terrible mistake." The room became quiet. "I judged a woman by her appearance. I thought I was doing my job. But what I really did was something cruel." He paused, his voice breaking. "I saw an old woman asking for a large amount of money. I didn't see her honesty. I didn't see her past. I only saw her clothes." He turned toward Elisa. "Ms. Moore, I am sorry, deeply sorry. You didn't deserve what happened." The crowd clapped softly. Then the bank manager came forward. He cleared his throat and said, "Today, we want to do more than apologize. We want to honor Elisa Moore for her work, her kindness, and her strength." He held up a large framed certificate. It read, "In respect and gratitude to Ms. Elisa Moore, for her years of service, for protecting the bank, and for reminding us of true human value." The crowd clapped louder now. Some even wiped tears from their eyes. Elisa stood up slowly. She walked to the stage. Her hands did not shake. She looked at the faces before her. She held the microphone and said, "I didn't come here today for awards. I didn't come for an apology. I came because I want people to change." She paused. "I was treated badly because I didn't look rich. But what you wear does not show what you carry inside." More people nodded. Kindness, honesty, and respect. They don't need a suit or a tie. They live inside your heart. Then she turned toward Mr. Harris. "And this man, though he hurt me, had the courage to say sorry in front of the world. That is strength." Mr. Harris lowered his head, ashamed but thankful. Elisa smiled gently for the first time. "Let this be a lesson," she said. "Look beyond someone's clothes. Look into their eyes." The crowd stood and clapped loudly. Cameras flashed. Reporters recorded every word. As the event ended, the manager stopped Elisa and said, "There's one more thing." He handed her a brown envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it," he said, smiling. Elisa opened the envelope slowly. Inside were documents. She looked at them and gasped. It was the deed to a small house, paid in full. "What is this?" she asked. "We found out that you live in a small rented place," the manager explained. "The bank has decided to gift you this house as a small thank you. It's near a garden, quiet and peaceful." Elisa covered her mouth in shock. Her eyes filled with tears. "You don't have to accept it," he said gently, "but we wanted to give back, just a little, after all you gave us." She nodded slowly. "Thank you," she whispered, "not just for the house, but for finally seeing me." The cameras flashed again. Later that night, the news channels played the video of the apology. People watched and felt hope. In a world that often forgets kindness, this story reminded everyone what really matters. Weeks passed after the bank's public apology. People still talked about Ms. Elisa Moore. Her story had touched millions. But Elisa didn't stop there. She had a dream, a quiet dream she carried in her heart for many years. Now, it was time to make that dream come true. It all started with a file in her cupboard. Inside were old letters, names of girls from poor families, and school reports with high marks, but no money for further study. Years ago, Elisa had met many of these girls while working in the bank. They came in with their parents, hoping to open small accounts. Some were shy. Some had big dreams. All of them needed a chance. So Elisa had quietly saved money. She never told anyone. She lived simply. No fancy clothes, no big vacations, just one goal: to give education to girls who couldn't afford it. Now, with the world finally watching, she knew it was the right time. She reopened her Hope Scholarship Fund. And this time, it was bigger than ever. The bank, now full of guilt and gratitude, agreed to support it. They gave more money. So did other companies. Even strangers from the internet donated. Soon, the fund was ready. 50 girls were chosen that year. Each girl received full support: school fees, uniforms, books, and even a small laptop. But Elisa didn't just give money. She met each girl. She talked to them. She listened to their dreams. "I want to become a doctor," said one. "I want to open a school for street children," said another. "I want to be a banker, just like you," one girl said shyly. Elisa smiled every time. Her eyes sparkled with pride. One of the girls, named Mira, had tears in her eyes when she first received the scholarship. "My father is a rickshaw driver," she said. "He cried last night because he couldn't pay my school fees. Today, you saved my future." Elisa hugged her gently. "No, Mira, you will save many futures. I just gave you the start." News reporters visited the scholarship office. They interviewed the girls. They interviewed Elisa. But Elisa always said the same thing: "This is not about me. It's about them. Their strength. Their future." Soon, something beautiful happened. One of the first girls Elisa had helped 10 years ago, now a grown woman, returned to visit her. She was wearing a doctor's white coat. She held Elisa's hand and said, "I'm here because of you." Elisa's eyes filled with tears. "You did the hard work," she whispered. The woman smiled. "You believed in me when no one else did. Now I believe in others. I work in a free clinic. I treat poor families, just like mine once was." Elisa hugged her tightly. At the bank, things had also changed. Mr. Harris was no longer the proud, careless man he used to be. He now greeted everyone with kindness. Rich or poor, clean clothes or dirty. He started a training session for all new staff called "See the Person, Not the Wallet." The young female teller became the head of customer support. She created a new policy: every voice matters. The manager made it official. Elisa Moore would always be remembered as one of the bank's founders of honor. One day, Elisa sat under a tree in her new house. The garden was full of flowers. Birds sang nearby. She looked at the list of scholarship girls. More names were being added. More lives were being changed. She smiled to herself. I was arrested for asking for my own money, she thought. But maybe that moment was not my fall. Maybe it was the start of something bigger. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but this time it was not from pain. It was from pride. It had been 1 full year since the day Elisa Moore was wrongly arrested at the bank. The world had changed so much since then. The bank had changed. The people had changed. And Elisa had changed lives, many lives. The Hope Scholarship Fund was now one of the most respected programs in the country. Over 200 girls were studying in good schools and colleges. Some were already on their way to becoming doctors, teachers, and bankers. People from everywhere sent letters to Elisa. Some called her Mother of Hope. Some called her the woman who never gave up. But Elisa never cared about names. She still lived simply. She still smiled quietly. One day, she received a special invitation. It was from the city's mayor. It said, "Dear Ms. Elisa Moore, we invite you as our guest of honor at the City Women's Day celebration. Your story has changed our hearts. We wish to celebrate your courage and kindness." Elisa was surprised. She had never been invited to such a big event. "I'm just one woman," she said softly. But the young teller from the bank, who now worked closely with Elisa, smiled and said, "No, you're the woman who made us all better." Elisa agreed to go. The day came. The city hall was full. Hundreds of people, including officials, teachers, students, and families. The stage had flowers, lights, and a big screen showing moments from Elisa's life. The video played. A photo of her as a young bank worker. A screenshot of the news when she was arrested. A photo of her holding the scholarship file. A group picture of all the girls she helped. Then, the mayor stepped onto the stage. He said, "1 year ago, this city made a mistake. A kind, honest woman was insulted because of how she looked. But instead of becoming bitter, she became a light for others." People clapped. She didn't fight with anger. She fought with grace. And today, we honor her. The mayor called her to the stage. As Elisa slowly walked up, the whole crowd stood. Everyone stood. Young girls, bank staff, the same Mr. Harris who once judged her, even reporters who once ignored her. Elisa looked around, her eyes filled with tears. She had been judged. She had been hurt. But now she was respected, truly respected. The mayor handed her a golden award shaped like a small flame. On it were the words, "To Elisa Moore, the flame that lit 1,000 paths." The crowd clapped and cheered. Elisa took the mic. Her voice was soft, but clear. "I never thought this day would come," she said. "I was once treated like I didn't matter, but I didn't let that stop me." She looked at the scholarship girls in the front row. "You girls are my true reward. You are my hope." Then she looked at everyone. "Let this be a lesson to all. Never judge someone by their clothes. Never forget that one small act of kindness can grow into something big." The crowd stood and clapped again, louder than before. Later, as the sun set and the event ended, Elisa stood outside the hall, feeling the evening breeze on her face. Mira, one of the scholarship girls, ran up to her and said, "You changed my life." Elisa smiled. "Now it's your turn to change someone else's." And with that, she walked into the quiet street. No cameras, no noise, just the footsteps of a woman who was once looked down upon, now walking with honor, and leaving behind a story the world would never forget. 10 years later, a young woman stood behind a podium at a large university auditorium. She wore a dark blue graduation gown. Her eyes were shining with tears. A gold medal hung around her neck. The crowd was silent, waiting to hear her speak. She took a deep breath and said, "My name is Mira Shah, and I'm the first girl in my family to finish school. And now, medical college. The crowd clapped softly. But I didn't get here alone. There was a woman who saw something in me when no one else did. She paused. Her voice trembled. She wasn't rich. She wasn't famous. But she had the biggest heart in the world. The screen behind her lit up. A photo of an old woman appeared. Elisa Moore. The crowd gasped. Some recognized her. Some did not. Mira smiled. She gave me a scholarship when I had nothing. Not just me. Hundreds of girls. Because of her, I became a doctor. Because of her, I now run a free clinic in her name. The photo on the screen changed again. This time, it showed a small building. The Elisa Moore Free Health Center. It stood in a quiet town, with a garden beside it. Children played outside. A sign above the door read, "No one will be turned away here." Mira continued speaking. Elisa Moore is no longer with us. She passed away peacefully 3 years ago, in her sleep. But her legacy lives on. The room became silent again. Some people wiped away tears. She was once arrested for looking too poor to be trusted. But today, she is the reason thousands of people are living better lives. Behind her, more pictures appeared. Girls studying in classrooms. Doctors treating patients. A group of young women holding certificates with proud smiles. All of this, Mira said, because one woman believed in kindness more than anything else. The audience stood up, one by one. They clapped, not just for Mira, but for the woman who had changed her life forever. Outside the university, a statue stood near the entrance. It was small, simple, and made of bronze. It showed Elisa Moore sitting on a bench, smiling, with a book in her lap. Next to her, a girl was reading. A plaque at the bottom read, "Elisa Moore." She didn't shout to change the world. She whispered, and the world listened. Back in the audience, a little girl turned to her mother and asked, "Who is that lady in the statue?" The mother smiled and replied, "She's the reason so many girls like you can dream big now." And somewhere, in the wind that moved through the trees and the quiet garden by the clinic, it felt like Elisa Moore was still there, watching, smiling, and proud, because the seed she planted had become a forest.